Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Microsoft Megabyte podcast for July 15th, 2021. And yeah, that's right. This is a new voice in your ear because I, Kyle Van Son, have vanquished Brian Gavados into the fiery depths of a vacation, to be honest. He's taking some time off doing whatever it is he does for fun. So I'm taking over this podcast ship once and for once. I don't know for how many. We'll probably be back in a few days. Look, the point is, I'm seriously happy to be filling in for this episode because this is an exciting topic and we have an incredible guest to chat with. So today, hopefully you have heard the big news of the moment, but if you haven't, how exciting for me to be the first to tell you, Windows 11 is coming soon. And to help us understand what's going on, what it means for our customers and you retail professionals today, we are fortunate enough to have Thomas Billy, who works on the Windows go-to-market team at Microsoft. So let's jump right in. Well, hello, Thomas. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I am doing great, Kyle. How are you doing?
I am doing great. I'm very excited to talk to you. Let's dive right in and let's give a little bit of background about who you are, who we're talking to. Why don't you let us know what a typical day or work week looks like in your world nowadays?
That's a great question. Over the past year, it's looked very differently from previous, in part because we, of course, have been working on the topic that we're going to be discussing today, which is Windows 11. So over the past year, our lives in the go-to-market team in Redmond has just been very different. A, because we haven't been in Redmond, just like everyone else. And B, because we've really been preparing for the announce of Windows 11 and the consequent launch of that. So it has been a lot of trying to figure out, A, what's the product that we need to bring to market? How do we solve the ask from our users? And then 2, how do we do it in a way that makes the most sense? So my typical day is very much calls from 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning until late afternoon, early evening, and often into the evenings because of, the different time zones that we work with.
Yeah, anyone working with any worldwide team knows what that headache is like. You mentioned sitting on this big piece of information and keeping it under wraps for, it sounded like you said, a full year. What's that like, knowing that there's this huge announcement right around the corner, or maybe that you're sitting on for such a long time and you just can't talk about it with anyone, or at least not with anyone outside of that, that confidentiality umbrella? What's that like?
Yeah, it's been a pretty awesome experience. I've been at Microsoft for about 10 years, half of the time in the field. I'm originally from Denmark, so I used to work for Microsoft in Denmark, where I got to launch both Windows 8 and Windows 10 and kind of sat a lot further down the timeline, if you will. I was on the receiving end of what I've now been part of producing with the awesome team that I work with. But it is wildly fascinating because we've been doing a ton of research, listening to people, trying to find out, what does the Windows of the future actually look like? How do we go and solve the needs that we're met with today? So it's been incredibly exciting, but it's also been really nerve-wracking because, we had our big announce moment on June 24th. And when you have an announce moment, you really want news. And so trying to keep everything under wraps is a challenge because the Windows ecosystem is so big, because it's constantly, you need to strike a balance between keeping things on the wraps and enabling the ecosystem to go and support the announcement. So it is a fine balance, but it's been very exciting.
Speaking of the announcement on June 24th, do you have any favorite moments from the announcement, that big 45 minutes that we all got to witness?
Yeah, I think the demos for sure is where the product really comes to life. Philip's demos, Carmen's demo, even some of the gaming demos. That's what it's really about. Panos is just such a good storyteller, and he does a great job at kind of making a story out of it. But I think for people like me and you and likely a lot of the listeners of the podcast, seeing the product, seeing what it can do, seeing the problem that it solves, and how you can kind of take those features and make them your own and use them in your day-to-day is really where that's what I prefer. I think the demos is what I get the most excited about.
Yes, it was very exciting to see that new experience come to life for the first time. And I'm sure as someone who's been keeping it a secret for a year, finally having it out in the open and getting to see people's initial reactions to something you've known about for a while, I'll bet that was exciting as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have been looking a lot at Twitter. I've been looking at a lot of different online platforms. And obviously the search term I have is Windows 11 because I want to see what people think. Because when you've been close to it for so long, you kind of almost get blinders on eventually because you know things that the rest of the world does not know. And so you sometimes sort of forget that not everyone has the same history and the same visibility to how we got there. So I think it's wildly fascinating. You know, I spend a lot of time seeing how people react, what people like, what people dislike. And, you know, it's Windows. We have over 1 billion people that use it. And there's just no way there's not going to be people out there that are unhappy with what we do. You know, that's never going to happen. Mm-hmm. However, after this announcement, the vast majority of feedback that I've seen is incredibly positive. People are excited, and that just makes me so happy.
Did you happen to see any post-announce, any reactions that really stuck in your brain as very memorable?
Oh, I've actually screenshotted one and sent it to the rest of the team, which is just Windows 11 and then the fire icon. That just makes me so happy. I'm like, yes, I agree.
It's short, it's sweet, gets their point across very simply, no notes.
Well, it's just so, you know, I agree. I really agree. I've been using it for a while and, you know, we've had some early builds that have been early builds and react the way early builds do, but it's running so smoothly and it makes me really proud of what the design and engineering team has built. You know, I don't sit in engineering, so I don't build anything, but, you know, we've been part of the conversations for, as I said, for a year, trying to figure out what are the problems we can go and solve with the new Windows? What does the world look like today? And not just today, but what does the Windows of the future need to have? And I think I think with Windows 11, we're off to a great start.
In this year of secrecy, your team has done a lot of research going into how people use Windows today and what goes into developing a new product like this, what people need and want out of Windows. So to put it simply, why Windows 11 and why right now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think there's sort of two questions in there. There is why now and why Windows 11. And let me start with the second one first. You know, the spirit of Windows has always been about continuous innovation. It's sort of in our DNA to involve with and ahead of our customers. And so with over 1 billion people using their Windows PCs today, we've just seen a fundamental shift since we launched Windows 10. And now feels like the time to go out and present to the world the Windows that operates and works with how people interact with their PCs today and how we believe they're going to continue to do that in the future. The research we've done is really fascinating because we've sort of seen, I guess, 4 different areas that became really clear in our research. The headline when you go out and do research on technology is very often that everyone just wants their technology to be more simple and they want ease of use. And I think we can all relate to that because, sure, I want my phone or my car or whatever it is. I just want it to be simpler and easier to use. But we saw sort of 4 main topics in the research. First of all, we saw everyone just feeling overwhelmed. And that really ties back to that ease of use. You know, you and I and everyone who listens to this podcast are not complete strangers to technology or jumping on a Teams calls. But there are hundreds of millions of people all over the world that overnight had to all of a sudden not go to the office, get a PC and do their jobs from home without ever having tried that before. So that feeling of being overwhelmed is something that we set out to try and address with Windows 11. The second thing I think we've all tried is just feeling isolated, right? We've all tried to solve that by doing birthday calls on Teams or Zoom, but it's just not the same. However, that sense of isolation has just been very real, and people just crave an ability to connect with ease to their friends and family around the world. Then the third thing we saw really clearly was access to information. When we go to the office or we go to school, we're not just surrounded by people, but we're surrounded by information, right? You overhear a conversation, or you have that water cooler chit chat, or someone drops by your office and say, hey, have you heard ABCD? That doesn't happen when we're at home. And so we're constantly grabbing our phones to kind of see what's going on in the world, or opening a new browser to look at something that's not work related. And so that easy access to information is something we also were super focused on in Windows 11. And then the last thing we were trying to solve for is we are very aware that the way you interact with your tablet and your phone, like the behavior you have there, is something that isn't necessarily represented in Windows today, in Windows 10. And so that discoverability of content and information on those form factors, we're trying to make sure that you can take that behavior and use that behavior in Windows 11 as well. So between feeling overwhelmed, sense of isolation, access to information, and some of that phone and tablet behavior, those were 4 key areas we saw from research that I think we've successfully brought forward to Windows 11.
I love that. And I think that is so powerful for our retail professionals, because it gives them a wide variety of talking points to choose from to help them identify what's going to resonate the best with the customer I'm speaking to right now. I think the one I'm most excited about is that sense of simplicity that Windows 11 is going to bring. For example, I'm someone with multiple monitors, and I snap Windows side by side all day long. I switch between. I'm doing the keyboard shortcuts. Am I dragging a window to the edges of the monitors? But if a basic Windows 10 user doesn't have a Thomas or a Kyle or a retail pro to let them know that that tool exists, like not everyone has the training background that I do or the wealth of experience that you do, they might not know that Snap ever exists unless they're the kind of person who goes and digs for cool keyboard shortcuts or cool Windows features. So having that simplicity of Snap layouts Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's actually one of the sort of key fundamental areas that we've focused on in Windows 11 is discoverability, because you're absolutely right. There are so many features that are amazing even in Windows 10 and in Windows 7. But if you don't know they're there, like Snap is a great example. If you don't know Snap exists, you're not just going to, you might accidentally find it because you drag your window to the side of the PC screen. But if you don't know that it's there, you wouldn't think to do that. And so discoverability has been very, very key, which is why, to your point, Snap layouts become very apparent when you hover. The new widgets functionality has its own dedicated icon in the taskbar. So it's not just swipe from the left, because if you don't know to swipe from the left, why would you ever know that widgets is there? So discoverability has actually been very, very key to make sure that not only do we have the features, but we're also helping people find them.
I think it is a really smart way for Windows 11 to position itself and move forward. And speaking of moving forward, and speaking of things that are a bit of a ways away, one final question here about the future. As someone working on that Windows go-to-market team, what excites you the most as you look forward into the future of Windows?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I've been on the Windows business for quite some time now, and it makes me really happy and I guess somewhat proud to see how over the past 18 months, when we've all have to adapt and do things differently, people have turned to the Windows PC to help solve that. And that's really key because it's bringing the Windows PC back to the center of the desk, if you will. People are realizing that the diversity of the PC, whether you're a gamer or whether or not you're trying to do Teams calls or Zoom calls, whether you've got to work from home, whether you got to study from home, whether you're just connecting with friends and family, the Windows PC has really become essential again. And that I think is great. it's really hard for us to know what the future is going to hold, but the innovation that's coming to Windows is incredible. Not just what we're launching now in Windows 11, but obviously we're working with the engineering team on what's to come in the future. And there's just some amazing work happening. Again, a lot of what we do is based in research and asking people, what are the challenges you're facing, and then try to find a solution for that. So I think the innovation coming into Windows becoming a massive priority for Microsoft is absolutely key. And it makes me really happy to be part of that Windows journey.
All right, Windows 11 coming soon, coming later this year. I'm excited about it. We're all looking forward to it. But later this year in the world of retail, Thomas, that's an infinity away. What are we doing today to help us drive more excitement, more confidence around selling our current excellent Windows 10 device portfolio?
Yeah, that's a really good point. What is absolutely essential for us right now is to maintain the amazing momentum we have with Windows 10. So we absolutely are still going to continue to sell Windows 10. There's also going to be people in the world who would like to stay on Windows 10, which they absolutely can. We're going to continue to support Windows 10 all the way to 2025. And so Windows 10 is not going away this fall. It will absolutely still be there. Up until Windows 11 launches, which to your point is later this year, we're absolutely going to continue to put efforts behind Windows 10. We should get excited about what's coming in the future. Absolutely. But right now, the primary focus is on Windows 10 because to your point, Windows 11 isn't in retail yet. You can absolutely experience if you want to go and download an insider build and try it at home. But there's nothing really to do for our end users just yet. Our consumers, regular consumers, should go out, make sure they buy a Windows 10 device that meets the minimum spec for Windows 11 so that when we do launch Windows 11, they have a path to put a Windows 11 on that device.
And that path to upgrade, that's going to cost me what? $100, $300? I'll get my wallet out. I'm ready to go. Just let me know the number.
It is going to run you absolutely $0. If your device meets the minimum spec for Windows 11, the upgrade will be free.
Incredible. Astonishing news. No one heard it before today. That's not true. You've heard it here, though. Windows 10 upgrading to Windows 11 will be free. So keep selling those amazing Windows 10 devices today because many of them will be eligible for that free upgrade to Windows 11 when it launches later this year. In that vein of driving confidence and excitement around Windows 10 at retail, Thomas, as someone who lives and breathes Windows, is there a tool or a feature inside of Windows 10 today that you just can't live without? Maybe it's something hidden, not everybody knows about, but what's something that's just like your go-to bread and butter? If you get a moment to drive excitement around Windows, you talk about this.
Yes, I do. I do.
How did I know? That would be something you would discuss.
Well, I don't know how hidden it is, but it's a feature I use a lot. It's the Cloud Clipboard. That thing makes me so happy. It's the Windows button and V. So if you go in and you do a Shift Windows S, which hopefully most people know is the snipping tool, you can do like a screen clip or you can snip something. You can actually do multiple of those. It will put them on your Cloud Clipboard and you can go back in time and say, hey, the snip or the screen grab I did 3 snips ago or 3 clips ago is still on the clipboard. It also includes if I copy text, you can go back and grab that. It'll actually keep it on your Cloud Clipboard. I think that feature is just unbelievable and I use it a lot.
This is entirely true, not something made up for this podcast. One of the very first things I did once I had my insider build of Windows 11 loaded, I went and I checked the settings to see if one of my standard favorite features, Cloud Clipboard, was existing already in this build. And lo and behold, it is. Cloud Clipboard has already made its way to Windows 11.
It's such a good feature. And again, unless you know the keyboard shortcut, or if you're fortunate enough like me to have someone on our team who knows pretty much all the features, I would probably never have found that. But I happen to have someone who's dives really deep into the product and goes through all the features and was like, hey, this thing you need to know this exists because it's a complete game changer.
I absolutely agree. Thomas, this has been fantastic. Before we send you on your way, is there anything else lingering in your brain that you want to let our retail professionals know about Windows 10, Windows 11, one last piece of information or messaging for them before I release you from podcast prison?
Well, the last thing I would say is, and this is just to reiterate, let's drive some energy for Windows 10. Windows 10 is still an incredible product with over 1 billion users that are actually very, very happy with that product. And so let's make sure that we maintain that momentum. Let's get excited about what's to come in the future. And once we get to Windows 11, let's get all that energy that we built up behind Windows 11 and have an incredible launch of that product later this year.
Thomas, all that remains is to say thank you so much for taking the time to come here and talk to me about Windows 11 today. Maybe as we get closer to launch and more concrete details become available, maybe we can have you back to talk a little bit more and give us more information around how excited we should be around Windows 11.
Absolutely. I would be delighted to.
Thanks so much, Thomas.
Thank you.
This has been the Microsoft Megabyte Podcast, a training tool for Microsoft field team members and sales professionals across the country, produced by Microsoft employees.